All right, quick video on writing lab reports. In particular, we're looking at the section on your procedure or your methods in this video. So the thing to kind of keep in mind is that science writers lay everything out for their readers so that the readers don't have to make any assumptions. We kind of operate under the idea that if the reader makes assumptions, the assumptions they're going to make are wrong. So it's really important that we spell everything out. So a big part of the way we do that is to organize the conclusions or the findings from our labs in various specific structures. And we do this really by breaking our writing into four primary sections. There's a section on the question that was being asked and the hypothesis going into the lab. Then there is a section on our methods or procedures, and that's what we're really going to talk about today. You would follow that up with a section on the results that analyze the data, and then a final section that is a conclusion, kind of wrapping up what we found out as it relates to the problem that was being asked, the hypothesis that was being addressed in the first place, and then maybe like where we need to go from here. How does this connect to some outside scenario, or maybe what future research or things like that should be done. So back in the beginning of the year, we did a lab called the Plot Plot Fizz Fizz lab, where we investigated the impact of temperature on the rate at which fizzing stopped for an Alka-Seltzer tablet. So we looked at the effect of water temperature on the fizz time for Alka-Seltzer tablets. And this was a sample lab report that we wrote there. And so we're really looking at the second paragraph in here. This is just our procedures. It's just kind of a quick run through of telling the reader what it was that we did in this particular experiment from the beginning to the end. Basically, someone should be able to kind of duplicate our experiment by reading what we did in that procedure section. So in the procedure section, it's really important that we make sure that the method is clearly explained to the reader so that they know how the experiment was performed. So this really addresses like what steps did you take in completing the lab, what materials did you use in going through that experiment. So if we look at just this section of that sample lab report from the Plot Plot Fizz Fizz lab, we say that in conducting that experiment, to conduct this experiment, 3 beakers were used. So I'm starting to list my materials here. Each contained 150 milliliters of water at different temperatures. The volume of the water was measured using a graduated cylinder to ensure consistent measurements. And then, so now I've listed the materials that I'm utilizing. I have these 3 beakers. They have different temperatures of water, how I measured that water out. The first beaker contained water that was at 87 degrees Celsius, another at 23 degrees Celsius, and the final beaker at 12 degrees Celsius. So now my reader knows what temperature the water containers were, not just that they were different amounts. And then 1 Alka-Seltzer tablet was added into each beaker all at the same time. And then as soon as the Alka-Seltzer tabs were added to the water, a stopwatch was used in order to measure the time until the tablet stopped fizzing. So again, we're telling them what tools were being used, the fact that there was only 1 Alka-Seltzer tablet, the fact that all 3 were dropped in at the same time, and that it was a stopwatch that we used to measure that time. So with this information, someone could basically duplicate the experiment that we did. And that's kind of the goal of this section, is to kind of give a quick recap of what we did, but with enough detail that someone could basically mimic that experiment. So this is kind of what we're looking at here in writing this section. It's probably the easiest section overall to write without much experience, because you're really just telling me what you did. So that's what you're going to do in writing this section. And if you have any questions, make sure that you ask.